In today's video, I'm going to dive into Saul Kripke's philosophy of proper name. Kripke was a well-known philosopher and made a very famous contribution to the field of philosophy of language and modal logic. His seminal work, Naming and Necessity, which is the compilation of three lectures that he delivered at the University of Princeton in the year 1970. This work, Naming and Necessity, has been published in the year 1980. And there he dealt with the debate of proper name in the field of philosophy of language. So today I shall be particularly concentrating on his theory of proper name. Saul Kripke proposes Millian theory of name, a Millian theory of name. John Stuart Mill, I'm talking about John Stuart Mill. He offered a theory of proper name that has been adopted by Saul Kripke. According to Mill, proper name, for example, John, Smita, Bob, okay, any proper name whatsoever do not have connotation, they only have denotation. Proper name only denotes the entity that is referred to by the proper name. Proper name do not have sense or meaning, so far as John Stuart Mill's theory of proper name is concerned. Kripke also proposes a Millian theory of proper name. Here he acknowledges that proper name does not have sense or meaning, and he observes that there is an inherent problem in Fregean notion of sense. If you remember, Frege, in his celebrated paper on Sinn and Bedeutung, on sense and reference, he made a distinction between sense and reference of a proper name. And he argued that there must be something more to meaning than reference in the case of a proper name. So Kripke observed that there is a difficulty in Fregean notion of sense. He felt the need that we must distinguish between two aspects of Fregean notion of sense, because Frege has made a conflation between two facets of sense. In a part of lecture 1 of his seminal work, Naming and Necessity, let me tell you, I'm going to cover today's discussion from Saul Kripke's seminal work, Naming and Necessity. Naming and Necessity, as I mentioned, it's an epoch-making book. So he, in the part of lecture 1, mentions, I quote, Frege should be criticized for using the term sense in two senses. For he takes the sense of a designator to be its meaning. Alright. And he also takes it to be the way the reference is determined. Identifying the two, he supposes that both are given by definite descriptions. So in page number 59 of first lecture from Naming and Necessity, we find that Kripke is asserting that Frege should be criticized for using the term sense in two senses. Okay. he takes the sense of a designator to be its meaning. He takes the sense of a designator to be its meaning. And at the same time, he also uses sense to be the way the reference is determined. So here is the two facets of Fregean notion of sense. On the one hand, sense of a designator has been considered to be its meaning, to be the meaning of a proper name, to be the meaning of a designator. On the other hand, it is something that fixes the reference. It is the way the reference is determined. It also takes sense has been taken to be determining its reference. Sense is something that fixes the reference. So Frege made a conflation between the two facets of sense. And Saul Kripke realized that these two uses of sense should be separated. And this is the inherent problem, this conflation between two distinct aspects of sense is the inherent problem of Fregean notion of sense, Fregean theory of sense. Okay. Having identified this problem, Kripke draws a distinction on page number 291 in the book Naming and Necessity. Kripke draws a significant distinction between two aspects of a designator. Frege is calling proper name, in short, designator. Okay. Oh, one very important thing that I have overlooked, that he supposes that both, like, sense, the meaning of a designator, and sense, the purpose of sense is to fix the reference. Okay, these both aspects are given by definite descriptions. So definite descriptions serves two purposes. It gives the meaning, it gives meaning of a designator. At the same time, it fixes the reference. Okay, on the one hand, it is the sense of a proper name. On the other hand, it determines the reference. Now, having clarified this issue, he proceeds to distinguish between semantic content of a proper name and the second aspect, fixation of reference. So, giving the semantic content, this is one aspect of sense. One aspect of sense is giving the semantic content, meaning. So this is one aspect, this is one facet of Fregean sense. A sense is supposed to be that which is grasped by the mind. A sense is supposed to be that which is grasped by mind. A meaning in some non-technical sense. This way of looking at description or cluster of description associated with a name is to say that the description or cluster of description gives what Mill would call the connotation of the name. So, descriptions or cluster of descriptions gives the meaning of name. What is meaning? Meaning is something that is grasped by our mind, non-technically. Frege would call thought. Thought is something a proposition expresses. This is a very nuanced thing. We are not going into that debate. For now, let's understand that Kripke says Kripke, by meaning, I mean, by the semantic content of proper name, he understands that it is something that is grasped by our mind. It's a meaning, non-technical sense. In some non-technical sense, this is this way of looking at description or cluster of description. So if you remember that Saul was a philosopher. For him, the meaning of proper name is not a single description, but a cluster of description, a bunch of descriptions, a bundle of descriptions determine or fix the reference. So far as Saul's theory of proper name is concerned, in the domain of philosophy of language, proper name, the philosophy of proper name is a very crucial issue, and there has been a huge debate on that. And the famous debate that we so far have covered, one is referential theory of proper name. Thereafter comes Frege's theory of proper name. Okay, then Russell's theory of descriptions, and thereafter it's like Saul's clustered theory, and now Kripke's theory of proper name, known as rigid designator. That we shall be later on gradually understanding those points. Now, for the time being, we are discussing the two different facets of proper name. The first one is giving the semantic content. What it is for something to give semantic content. It is definite description. Definite description or the cluster of descriptions. Definite descriptions gives the meaning or semantic content in some non-technical sense. Okay. And Mill would call it connotation of a name. Meaning, connotation of a name, or sense. These are interchangeable or more or less synonymous. So, any proper name, say for example Aristotle is a proper name. Its semantic content would be the teacher of Alexander the Great, the famous student of Plato, the author of Nicomachean Ethics. If you observe these three expressions, the author of Nicomachean Ethics, the teacher of Alexander the Great, the student of Plato, these are all definite descriptions. Okay, these are the sense of proper name. So far as descriptionist theories are concerned. Okay, descriptivist theory are concerned. So, so far as Fregean theory of sense concerned, these are the meaning of proper name. Having understood the semantic content of proper name, then let's move to another facet of proper name, that is fixing the reference. This is weaker than meaning. So sense serves two purposes. It gives the meaning or the semantic content of proper name on the one hand, and it fixes the reference. So fixes the reference means what? The point is, the definite description picks out the thing that the designator refers to. Here, the definite description or the sense picks out the particular object or the individual denoted or designated by the proper name. As simple as that. So, Aristotle, its semantic content or the sense is the famous student of Plato. This, what does it do? it just picks out the person Aristotle. When someone utters the author of Nicomachean Ethics, here the sense, it is the sense of the proper name Aristotle. I'm talking about Fregean theory of sense. Okay, Fregean notion of sense and reference. So Frege would say that it determines the referent of the proper name. That means the person Aristotle. So this facet of sense does not require that the name Aristotle means the most famous people of Plato. Actually, in that case, in that sense, in that aspect of sense, it is just like a route to the referent, to the denotation. It is a route that enable us to pick out the referent or the denotation. So Kripke's idea is that we can or we should separate these two facets. What are these two facets? Giving the semantic content and fixing the reference. But the question creeps in, why fix the reference without giving semantic content? I mean, why should we, first of all, why should we distinguish these two facets? Yeah, there is a necessity. There is a necessity behind this separation. I mean, behind this claim that Kripke is making. So a question is, why fix the reference without giving semantic content? If the Fregean view of names were correct, some claims that seem to be contingent would turn out to state necessary truths and would be knowable a priori. So the problem is that, very interesting problem. Herein lies the main problem. What if the definite description fixes the reference without giving semantic content? If Fregean view were correct, Fregean view of proper name were correct, then some claims that seem to be contingent, if we take Fregean theory of proper name to be correct one, then some claims that are actually contingent would turn out to be necessary truths, and that's why they will be knowable a priori. Let's understand it through an example. Okay, Aristotle is a proper name, and we shall try to understand it from Fregean perspective. Okay, for Frege, Aristotle is a proper name. I mean, if not for Frege, for all, Aristotle is definitely a proper name. All right. And sense of Aristotle, sense of the proper name Aristotle would be the author of Nicomachean Ethics. All right. But one thing should be noted. This is a contingent truth. Why? Because it is not a necessary truth. Contingent truth is contrasted with necessary truth. What is a necessary truth? A proposition that is true in all possible worlds is a necessary truth. And that which is not true in all possible worlds is contingent truth. At least there must be one possible world in which that proposition is false. Then it is not necessarily true. So here enters the notion of possible world. Possible world, by possible world, we are not claiming anything like we need a spaceship to arrive at. Possible world simply It just refers to possible situation, possible state of affairs. Okay. In Kripke's word, let me tell you. Kripke, at one place, he clarifies that possible world is just like possible state of affairs. Nothing more than that. So that's it. So coming back to the point, Aristotle was the author of Nicomachean Ethics. We can imagine such a situation where Aristotle has not authored. He didn't author Nicomachean Ethics. Someone else authored it. Okay, we can imagine logically. There is no doubt that we can imagine. So we found that there is at least one possible situation where we can imagine that Aristotle did not author Nicomachean Ethics. So the example under discussion, Aristotle was the author of Nicomachean Ethics, is not a necessary truth, is a contingent truth. But if we consider Fregean notion of sense to be the correct theory, then the author of Nicomachean Ethics, like Frege would consider it the sense of the proper name, Aristotle, this will lead to a problem, a huge difficulty, a blunder. How? If Aristotle is synonymous with the author of Nicomachean Ethics, then we can interchange it. We can formulate a sentence interchanging the synonymous terms. We can replace one with we can substitute one for the other. So the newly formulated statement will be: the author of Nicomachean Ethics was the author of Nicomachean Ethics. In the place of Aristotle, we substituted it for the author of Nicomachean Ethics. How could we substitute that? On what basis? Because Frege says the author of Nicomachean Ethics is the sense of the proper name Aristotle. It is the meaning. So Aristotle and the author of Nicomachean Ethics are just synonymous. So we can replace one with the other. Since they are synonymous, we can interchange. So now the newly formulated statement goes as: the author of Nicomachean Ethics is the author of Nicomachean Ethics. This is necessarily true statement, isn't it? Yeah, definitely it is true in all possible world. It is intuitively a priori true. We need no empirical evidence to justify this claim, to arrive at the truth of this proposition. It is self-evident, necessarily true. Okay, this can be known a priori. A priori means we need no empirical evidence to know the truth of this proposition. So here is a problem, why this will give rise to a problem. Okay, you need to carefully understand this particular issue. Given that Aristotle was the author of Nicomachean Ethics, we need not to conduct any empirical evidence so as to justify the truth of the second proposition, that the author of Nicomachean Ethics is the author of Nicomachean Ethics. Okay, so now the second statement is necessary, but the first statement is contingent. Okay, but the problem is if Aristotle and the author of Nicomachean Ethics are two synonymous, so how the first one is contingent proposition and the second one is necessary proposition. So a proposition that is necessary, a proposition that is synonymous with necessary proposition will also be necessary. Can you locate the problem? To sum up the problem, let me tell you very clearly in short. Aristotle is the author of Nicomachean Ethics. This is a contingent proposition because you can imagine very well that there could have been a situation where Aristotle did not author Nicomachean Ethics. That is why it is not necessarily true. It's a contingent proposition. Whereas we can, since Frege claims that the author of Nicomachean Ethics, this expression is the sense of the proper name Aristotle. So we can interchange it with Aristotle, and we can substitute the expression, the author of Nicomachean Ethics, for the proper name Aristotle, and this will turn out into a necessary truth. The author of Nicomachean Ethics is the author of Nicomachean Ethics is simply a necessary true statement and non a priori, because we need no empirical evidence to justify the claim. Since the second statement is necessary, and anything synonymous with necessary true statement would also turn out to be necessary. So the second statement is necessarily true statement, and since the first statement, that is Aristotle is the author of Nicomachean Ethics, has been claimed to be synonymous with the necessary true statement. The author of Nicomachean Ethics is the author of Nicomachean Ethics. So the problem we have located that the contingent proposition also turns out to be necessary if we consider Fregean notion of sense, Fregean theory of proper name to be the right one. Okay. For today, let me wind up today's discussion. In my subsequent videos, I shall be continuing the rest of the debate on proper name and the overall philosophical idea of Saul Kripke on proper name. Okay, and to sum up, let me tell you in few sentences what we understood so far in today's discussion. Kripke is offering Millian theory of name, John Stuart Millian theory of name. That means proper names do not have meaning or sense. Kripke found a serious problem in Fregean notion of sense. He observed that Frege has made a conflation. He mixed up two different aspects of sense. One is the semantic content of giving the semantic content, another aspect fixing the reference. Okay, and then he actually excavates that why is it necessary to separate these two facets. What if we do not separate these two aspects? What danger would engender if we do not separate these two different facets of sense? One danger is that we have already discussed, that the contingent statement will turn out to be necessary statement. Okay, so I'm winding up my video. Let's discuss Saul Kripke's profound ideas in our subsequent videos.